Calling to order the Cuyahoga County regular meeting for Wednesday, September the 12th, 2018. Clerk, please call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Schron.
Here.
Ms. Conwell. Here. Mr. Jones. Here. Ms. Brown. Mr. Hauser. Here. Ms. Simon. Here. Ms. Baker. Here. Mr. Miller is absent this evening. Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
And Council President Brady.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
Yes, Mr. President, there is. Folks in the audience, we have quite a few speakers, so I will call you up in the order of which I received your requests. Come to the podium, and then you have 3 minutes to speak. Once that time has elapsed, then I will ring a bell, and I will then call up the next person. So the first speaker is Michael Flickinger.
I wanted to thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. My name is Michael Flickinger. As far as work, I'm a certified public accountant. I wanted to attend today's session to talk with you about the Human Rights Ordinance. And I am specifically asking that you consider a change to that ordinance. I feel strongly that commission members should reflect the diversity of the residents of Cuyahoga County and not be limited to practicing attorneys. Various state and city commissions have quasi-functions and do not have the requirements that board members be attorneys. The Akron Civil Rights Ordinance has an aim to include a diverse set of members on that commission. The Ohio Civil Rights Commission members are appointed by the governor to 5-year terms, and no more than 3 members can be from the same political party. Members of the Cleveland Fair Housing Board are appointed by both council and the mayor. I am asking for your consideration that section 206.13b be replaced by the commission shall be comprised of 5 members appointed by county council. The composition of the commission shall be residents of Cuyahoga County and broadly reflect the diversity of Cuyahoga County. Terms shall be for 3 years with staggered terms. No more than 3 members of the commission can be from the same political party. In preparing my presentation, I wanted to have my facts correct. So I talked with several current and former board members from commissions in Northeast Ohio, in Columbus, and around the state. The former chair of the Ohio Civil Rights Commission told me, commissioners very well may receive legal advice, but it's ultimately the public commission that is responsible for a decision. The secretary of the Akron Commission, she said their goal, the mayor's goal, was a diverse and active volunteer commission. That was the goal of the mayor. She also, when she found out I was going to present to you tonight, said, please tell the county council, come down to Akron and see what they're doing down there. They're very friendly down in Akron. Well, some have stated that housing, employment, and discrimination laws are very complex, and they are. But they also stated at one of your recent meetings that only attorneys should be on the commission. I would respectfully disagree. How do I know that? I am very fortunate to have been appointed by Mayor Jackson to the Cleveland Civil Service Commission. I'm not an attorney, I'm a CPA. I've had 6 years on that commission. We hear and receive issues between two parties while making decisions and judgment. We value our support from our law department, but we ultimately make the decision. And there's that word quasi-judicial. So after listening to the streaming video, I do what every good commission member should do. I asked our legal counsel on the Civil Service Commission, and her response was, we're a commission that is both administrative for rules and quasi-judicial when we do hearings. These commissions demonstrate that public member commissions supported by law departments can serve the public well in both administrative and quasi-judicial functions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I didn't want to interrupt the gentleman. He's making some interesting points, and I appreciate that. As the clerk said, there is a 3-minute limit we don't want to cut off people in mid-sentence or anything else, but I just don't want anybody to think that because we were willing to let the last gentleman go on, that we're going to do that all night. So please try to be succinct, and we look forward to hearing to what you have to say.
Next speaker is Ron Van Kirk.
Council President Brady, members of Cuyahoga County Council, my name is Ron Van Kirk. I have the privilege of serving as the council president for the city of Brooklyn, Ohio, and I'm part of Mr. Brady's district. I am here today regarding the proposed Human Rights Commission legislation that this body is considering. I have numerous objections to this bill, but I will use my time today to discuss just 2 of those. First of all, why has this council not chosen to notify city officials and administrators of this legislation? Despite my position as a city leader, I was not made aware of this legislation by this body, but by a gentleman in my church. That is not right. Obviously, since the vote is to be taken this month, this legislation has been considered for quite some time. Why has this body chosen to not inform all stakeholders, especially city governments in this county, that this legislation was being considered? City leaders should have the ability to speak regarding their thoughts on this legislation, offer suggestions about potential consequences, and at the very least be given notification of its consideration. If enacted, the cities in this county will be responsible to comply with this legislation. This would require city government in many cases to change current laws, make different accommodations that currently exist, and of course spend taxpayer money to do so. So why were city leaders not notified and given a chance to weigh in on this matter? And simply putting out public notices regarding meetings and posting the agenda is not proper notification for such issues. An email from our county representative would have been the least this county council could have done and should have done. Secondly, has this council sought the opinion of the Attorney General on the legal basis for the county passing and then enforcing such legislation? I am not a lawyer, but it seems to me that this is a drastic overreach by the county and a clear violation of home rule as spelled out in the Ohio Revised Code. On what authority is the county able to go against the policies already enacted by the cities in this county? Each city is able, through home rule, to pass laws regarding this topic. The city of Lakewood, as an example, passed similar legislation a while back, and they have the right to do so under home rule. In my opinion, the county forcing cities to comply with this legislation is a violation of home rule, and at the very least should be reviewed by the Attorney General's office for an opinion in regards to the county's legal authority to enforce this legislation, and if a violation of home rule does exist. Has such an opinion been sought? Lastly, before I conclude, I would like to ask Mr. Brady, our Brooklyn's rep, to please appear before our city council to discuss this legislation. I invite you to do so. In conclusion, I am requesting that no action be taken on this legislation on September 25th or any date following until all administrations in this county have been properly notified and have a chance to read, understand, and ask questions regarding this legislation. This would be more than likely be done in a committee setting. Once in committee, I'm requesting that as a part of the research of that committee, that the Attorney General's office be contacted and asked to weigh in on issues that I have raised regarding this legislation. If such opinion has already been issued, I ask that it be released. This county has been organized since 1810. This legislation has not been in place for 208 years of our county's organization. Referring to this committee properly, vetting the legislation, and delaying a vote for a time is the most prudent way to handle such legislation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. John Stover.
Thank you. Mr. Brady, members of the council. My name is John Stover. I'm a former Parma City Council member, served 12 years on Parma City Council, currently president of Ohio Value Voters, and I want to go on record as stating my opposition to this specific legislation, ordinance number 2018-0009. Over the past 3 to 4 weeks, I've had the opportunity to communicate with virtually everyone on this council through email, as well as speaking with my county council rep, Mr. Tuma, as well as Ann Baker and Dale Miller. You know, when it comes to human rights, human rights actually begins at conception. That's a different argument for a different day, and maybe I'll come back before you to discuss that point. But regarding this ordinance is going to expand the cost of county government, and one has to ask the benefit that will be derived from doing so. When one asks the question, what are we looking at as far as expansion? The cost, from what I can see relative to a director, staff, and the expense accounts for commission members, probably going to be somewhere between $125,000 and $250,000. And if that cost has already been determined, certainly I would appreciate knowing what that amount would be. According to the Williams Institute, a UCLA think tank, roughly 0.5% of the population considers themselves to be transgender. So we have a piece of legislation that ultimately is going to impact, from all accounts, 99.5% of those living in the county. When I look upon this, and you know, I in fact have sent, I know this to everyone previously, this is what we have to be concerned with as far as I'm concerned relative to this legislation and the fact that the question was raised, not looking for an answer from any council member tonight, but I would say this: would you want your mother, your daughter, your sister, your grandmother to be sharing a room with a man dressed as a woman? And what you will find, and what I provided you here on the podium today, is a couple of articles from other parts of the country whereby this legislation has been passed. We already have in place the Ohio Civil Rights Commission, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity, and EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. We have these agencies in place to address these problems that one may have. I ask this council to give a great amount of thought before passing this legislation. And thank you very much for your time, and with that, I will yield my time to somebody behind me. I don't know who, but
Thank you very much.
thank you.
The next speaker is Pastor Kevin Folger.
County Executive Budish, President Brady, members of the council, thank you for taking a few moments of your time to allow me to speak in regards to the formation of the Cuyahoga County Human Rights Commission. Well, I think all people should be treated fairly and equally. Unfortunately, if this legislation is passed and established, it most certainly will not treat all people fairly. As a pastor and religious leader in our community, I'm concerned about First Amendment rights. This piece of legislation infringes on the First Amendment rights of myself and other Christians while granting a fairly small segment of our society special rights. I've submitted a legal prepared statement from our attorney, Terry Hamilton, to each of you, as well as a copy to be added to the record, which explains the undue hardship this legislation presents to people of biblical faith. As it stands now, all the citizens of Cuyahoga County have the same equal rights. We're all granted these rights by the Bill of Rights in the U.S. Constitution. We have the same rights regardless of our race, ethnicity, sex, social, economic standing, and religion. What this legislation will do is give a special set of rights to a segment of our community based on their personal and perceived gender identity or sexual orientation. When human rights laws are established based on sexual orientation and gender identity, some of the first people to be found in violation of these laws are people of faith, as seen in cases across the country. In fact, many times Christians are targeted to be made an example of. There are several cases that speak to this truth. The most notable one is Jack Phillips' case dealing with Masterpiece Cake Shop. That case went all the way to the Supreme Court. There, the court looked at the case and said that the Human Rights Commission of Colorado had not treated Mr. Phillips fairly and overturned a decision against him. Unfortunately, they failed to rule in the First Amendment element of the case. What happened then? The very same day the decision was rendered by the Supreme Court, Mr. Phillips was targeted once again and asked to provide a cake for the celebration of a transgender man. Mr. Phillips politely said he could not do it. Immediately, a grievance was filed against him. There are lots of places in Lakewood, Colorado where a cake could be ordered to celebrate this man's moment. Mr. Phillips was purposely targeted in order to punish him because he thought differently. Christian bakers, photographers, florists, and ministers, and sometimes churches have been targeted because they cannot, in good conscience, accommodate the request of someone whose behavior flies against biblical morality. In a sense, these laws are about control and a desire to punish those who think differently. As our society has drifted and changed on its opinion on morality, it has placed biblical Christianity in its crosshairs. We Christians have a fixed point of reference for marriage, morality, and gender. It's the Word of God. The conflict will come because your law requires us to do things that God in the Bible strongly condemns. This is exactly what the First Amendment of the Constitution was designed to protect us from. In my view, this ordinance is designed to punish anyone that does not fully accept, embrace, and completely approve the LGBTQ community. I urge you to vote no on this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Tony George.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, Mr. Council President, council members. My name is Tony George. I'm a resident of Cuyahoga County, and I love this county. This is only the second time I've appeared before council. The first time was when the county was going to sell a building that they owned for $200,000 less than what I bid. But that's been solved. So the county made out on that deal because I showed up and talked at this council. This is the second time I'm here, and I'm here because I'm really disturbed that the Council of Governments that was formed newly by the vote of the people of Cuyahoga County is even dealing with an issue like this. This is not the type of issue you guys should be dealing with. This is not why this Council of Government was set up. The state should be dealing with these issues. The cities individually could deal with these issues because they got the home rule to deal with it. You guys need to deal with economic issues, health and welfare issues, rebuilding the county roads, keeping our county safe with the sheriff's department, the jails. I can go on and on and on. I don't want my council people, my county executive, and my council president dealing with these type of issues. I have 2 daughters and 30-some nieces. I don't want to have to worry about my daughters and nieces going to the bathroom and some guy who thinks he's a girl on that particular day walks in the bathroom. It's not going to happen. Actually, this will cause a bigger problem for you. It'll cause a lot of problems for you as far as the restaurants and bars goes, which everybody knows I own 37 restaurants and bars. I'm not dealing with this. You're going to have us as bar and restaurant owners go to other counties right across the border because we don't want to deal with these kind of situations and be liable and to deal with these regulations and rules and laws. It's just not going to happen. I'm also here as the president of the Licensed Business Owners of Ohio. 586 members. 403 of them are from Cuyahoga County. We're all against it. Pay attention to what I'm saying. Because if you move forward with this legislation, my group is going to personally finance finding, fielding, and funding candidates who vote for this legislation. That's where we're at. I'm not done with my 3 minutes, Mr. Council President.
Yeah, but you brought something else into it.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Fielding candidates for office, and that's not appropriate, Tony.
Okay, well then, we'll switch the gears. We'll switch the gears. Mr. Council President, I'm not done with my 3 minutes. Mr. Council President, I'm not done with my 3 minutes, with all due respect.
Okay, go ahead.
If you really want to pass this, let's get the vote of the people. Let's put this on the ballot, and let's see if the people will pass it. All the councilmen up here know that the people of the Cuyahoga County will not pass this on the ballot. So if you really want to know what the true feelings of the Cuyahoga County people are, let's put it on the ballot. This is a touchy issue for us, Mr. Council President. So I'm telling you, I'm here, I'm emotional about this. I got 40 women in my family. I'm not gonna allow a man to walk in a woman's bathroom, not on my watch, and I'm gonna do everything in my power to stop it politically as well as forcefully if I have to. Thank you, Mr. Council President.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Ms. Joyce Witzke.
Members of the council, thank you for providing this opportunity for me to speak today about the Human Rights Commission legislation. As a grandparent, I take very seriously the privilege and responsibility to help my children pass along our family's values and beliefs to the next generation. One of those beliefs is that every human being is to be valued and respected, since each of us is an eternal soul of immeasurable worth. Let me assure you at the outset that we are anything but hate mongers. There's an old cliche that says, "My rights end where your nose begins." Conversely, then, can we agree that your rights end where my nose begins? Well, my nose is in the restroom of every public and quasi-public facility in Cuyahoga County, be it a school, church, mall, or stadium. In case you haven't already guessed, I'm deeply troubled that this legislation includes the categories of sexual orientation and gender identity or expression. This legislation throws open the restroom door for a pedophile to cloak himself in the guise of gender expression and prey on one of my granddaughters. And if a pedophile doesn't physically assault her, my granddaughters, like many young girls, are by nature innocent and modest, and we make a diligent effort to preserve that sweet naivete for as long as possible. We hope to spare them the confusion and angst that would result from an up-close and personal encounter in the restroom with, say, a cross-dressing male. And what about schools? We don't have to stretch our imaginations very far to picture a trio of adolescent boys, AKA hormones and tennis shoes, walking into the girls' restroom and then using this legislation to justify their actions. Can we be provided a guarantee that this will not happen? I'm a typical grandma who loves and wants to protect her grandkids, and I therefore respectfully request that you vote against this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Mr. John Lutz.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. My name is John Lutz. I pastor the North Coast Baptist Church in Lakewood in the Birdtown area. And I'm here to stand in opposition of this proposed ordinance. And I just want to talk quickly about a couple things with the ordinance. The intention of the ordinance says it's whereas it is the desire of the County of Cuyahoga County, Ohio, to protect and safeguard the rights and opportunities of all persons to be free from all forms of discrimination. That is a very high mark to go for, and the very thing that it's already been mentioned tonight briefly is the idea of thought discrimination. That is a form of discrimination. And I see this ordinance actually going beyond the scope and general reach of establishing almost a thought police. Where is the line that draws of whose thoughts are right and who isn't? If you balance that with also, this is an unelected, unaccountable commission, unaccountable in the sense that it's not voted on, it really subjects itself to really whoever's in power at that point, using it to that advantage. And again, if we, before it's even established, can come to that point of seeing that as a possibility, it's something we definitely need to consider with that. And so I would say we really need to look, you can't control thought discrimination, and I understand the action can be. But the other issue here is in the ordinance you use, and it is written that gender identity or expression is regardless of the individual's designated sex at birth. And I would find it much better for our tax dollars to be spent on trying to help these individuals that are struggling with something that's been designated with them. Even in your own ordinance, you acknowledge there is a designation to every individual that is born. Now, that either comes from a doctor or it comes from God. The word designated implies design. And so we understand that every individual is designed by God for special purposes, with special abilities, special disabilities, other things, colors, and genders. And so the implication there is a design. And where there is design, there is a designer. And I believe wholeheartedly this is really just more of an attack on truth, because God is truth. And we need to get back to truth. We need to help these individuals understand and not validate feelings that are not correct. And we have to agree that there are feelings that are not correct at times, and help explain through love and truth that which will help them, not hurt them in further down the road. So I thank you for your time.
And the next speaker is Mr. Jack Beaver.
Members of this council, thank you for allowing me to share my heart with you this afternoon. My name is Jack Beaver, and I'm an assistant pastor in Brooklyn, Ohio. However, today I want to give my testimony as a father of 3 children and a grandfather of 20. We read in Luke 18:6, but Jesus called them unto him and said, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of God." God has a special place in his heart for the children of this world. I would like to stand up for our innocent children and grandchildren by giving you several questions I would like you to ponder. Am I right in assuming that adding gender identity and gender expression as new protected class allows men to the right to have unauthorized access to women's showers, locker rooms, bathrooms in public areas, such as YMCA, public gyms, fitness centers, and homeless domestic violence shelters, which is happening around our country today? A statistic shows that only 0.5% make up the transgender population in our country. So why isn't consideration being given to the 99.5% of the population in our country for the privacy rights of our women and safety concerns of our children? How is it that only 11 people on this committee, and not the entire voting public, have the power to decide feelings and fates of our innocent children and loving parents? Since the 11 people on this committee will be responsible for passing this legislation, can you guarantee us that these changes will not have a traumatic effect on our children while they're using the public restrooms? Will the 11 on this committee guarantee us that our children and women will not be fearful or offended when going into the public restroom? Can you, as part of the 11 on this committee, guarantee us that women areas will not be used by perverted people who are masquerading as a transgender? If you pass this legislation as a grandfather, along with my granddaughter, I would have a difficult time believing that it would be safe for her or him to enter a public restroom. Will the 11 on this committee guarantee us that no harm will come to our children and women that use these public restrooms? Do the 11 on this committee realize that one of these days you're going to stand before a supreme judge of the universe whose name is God, and you will give an account for the decision that you're going to be making in a couple of weeks? Thank you again for giving me this opportunity to stand for the innocent children and their concerned parents and grandparents who are living in Cuyahoga County. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Ms. Rebecca Maletti.
Hello. I'd like to thank you all for your service to our county. As a resident of Cuyahoga County, I feel it is important to present some common sense reasons that this proposed Human Rights Commission is bad for our county. The proposed Human Rights Commission will create a hostile environment for existing businesses. I think we've seen that a little bit already today. Being that Cuyahoga County currently has the highest sales taxes in the state, the hostile business environment created by this proposed Human Rights Commission will further assist in driving potential new businesses away from Cuyahoga County to less hostile competing counties, resulting in a loss of potential tax revenue for our county. The proposed Human Rights Commission will place the county government in an adversarial relationship to existing businesses, infringe on the separation of church and state in places of worship, and cause numerous legal challenges against Cuyahoga County, all of which will require taxpayer money to fight. The cost of these lawsuits could amount to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, all paid by the Cuyahoga County taxpayer. This legislation will force business owners and employees, upon threat of significant penalty, to correctly identify and address the fluid, changeable criteria of gender identity and expression, criteria which cannot be measured scientifically or even visually. This criteria already protected under federal and state, the criteria already protected under federal and state anti-discrimination laws such as age, disability, biological sex, are concrete and can be proven through actual scientific means. The special rights afforded by this proposed Human Rights Commission will infringe upon the rights of business owners to protect their patrons as they see fit, upon the rights of religious individuals who hold to traditional values, and upon the privacy rights of the citizens of Cuyahoga County. These are all reason enough to reject this proposed Human Rights Commission. However, the most dire consequence of the creation of this proposed Human Rights Commission is the danger to the physical safety of biological women and children, and the removal of existing protections against sexual violence for women and children. The World Economic Forum website states, "The oldest and simplest justification for government is as protector, protecting citizens from violence." This proposed Human Rights Commission will fail the biological women of Cuyahoga County in a very crucial way. It will place women and children in a compromised position where sexual violence could more efficiently occur by granting biological men access into a private place where biological women and children are in a state of undress. To restate, this proposed Human Rights Commission will give biological men unrestricted, government-approved and encouraged access to private areas where women and children undress. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Mr. James Milletti.
Hello, my name is James Milletti. I'm a resident of Cuyahoga County. I noticed, I was making my way towards the bathrooms, I noticed there were keypads. Are those installed to restrict access for safety? There is a dramatic misconception about keypads going into the bathrooms. There's a dramatic misconception about Christians that the secular world has. We haven't heard any of the speakers on the other side of this issue. I'm against this human rights legislation. We haven't heard any of the people that are pro this legislation yet. But there's a misconception about Christians. Christians love everybody. It's actually a command directly from Jesus that we should love our neighbor as ourselves. It's stated in the Bible at least 15 times. We should love our neighbors as ourselves. We don't have any animosity against homosexuals or liars or adulterers or drunks or drug addicts or thieves or murderers. We don't have any animosity against anybody. And we want the best for everybody. But that also includes our daughters and our wives. And we want the best for them too. Allowing special rights for people at the expense of other people isn't right. I don't think anybody thinks that's right. I think Pew Research right now has on their website that over 70% of America claims Christian values. Right this second, they say 70% of America claims Christian values. That includes believing what God says, and God says things very specifically. The things that God has said has changed my life. I used to be lost in sin, and Jesus Christ saved me from those sins, as he can for anybody in this room, if you would just let him, if you would just ask him. And what this council is doing is establishing a proposing to establish, and hopefully doesn't, but is proposing to establish a way to infringe on me practicing what God has told me to do. That's confirmed in his word in the Bible repeatedly. We're supposed to love everybody, but we're supposed to have standards. We're supposed to lead people to salvation, and that doesn't involve letting anybody do anything they want at any time. That means obeying the word of God and submitting, not just pushing yourself through despite hurting everybody else. Because it's a large amount of people that are being hurt by what this council is proposing. And we don't want to hurt anybody, and I'm sure you guys don't want to hurt anybody either. So I ask that you would vote against this. If you do, if for some reason this does pass, and there are 3 people involved in almost like a tribunal aspect of deciding who's guilty and who's not, remember that 70% of America claims Christian values. Have at least 2 people on the council that are Christian, that believe the Bible, that will stand for God's rule and law. I thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Mr. Bruce Musselman?
Did he compare homosexuals to criminals? I thought so.
Well, I thank you for listening to us today, and I appreciate the speakers that have been here before. I have an international radio program that I have received thousands of hits on our website from all over the world. And some of this legislation to me sounds some of the most bizarre stuff that I ever heard. And if you think that that's a strange position, I think that in the last hundreds of years of our country, most people that would have lived at that time would have said the same thing. And I ask you, do we have suddenly a new set of wisdom and morality that they did not have? And if you talk about discrimination, well, we do discrimination against murderers and against thieves, and we lock them up and so on. Now, this type of legislation, the majority of women, they say that they talk about diversity. Is that diversity when you think the majority of women want to have a man that says that he's a woman, doesn't know what he is, comes into a restroom anytime he wants to gawk at some woman in there? And then they want to set up this kangaroo court, which is people that believe this type of thing. And then I understand they could fine them people thousands of dollars for their speech against freedom of speech, which I thought was one of the main things in the United States Constitution, for even saying, well, that's a woman's restroom, I mean, you shouldn't go in there, and so fine them and put them in jail. Now, this is outrageous, it's bizarre, it's strange, it's immoral, it's evil, it's against biblical Christian values, and it's nonsense. So I hope you will consider that. Thank you.
The next speaker is J.B. Anderson. J.B. Anderson.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I thank you for allowing us to speak. I'm a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine, and I laid down my life for my country. I love this country, and I don't have any children myself, but my brothers have 4 kids each, so I got 5 nephews and 3 nieces, and every time I turn around, I gotta get something for my child. But this kind of horrifies me. This ordinance that's attempting to be passed. I mean, just think. My 6-year-old daughter, or my 7-year-old daughter, my 6-year-old nephew, or I'm sorry, seven. Esther, my 7-year-old niece, my nephew James, her little brother, in the bathroom, and then we have this this sexually confused person. God loves him. I mean, he made him a man or a woman. Doesn't matter. No, it does matter. And they're a little confused, and who knows what they're gonna do in there with the kids. So I don't know, I just don't like this murkiness, this opaque, this opaque window. We use that for privacy. This turbid situation. It's all about confusion. Volunteers of America, what the heck? Come on, you gotta help out here. Yeah, so I think I've spoken on this, my piece, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Kenneth Sundermeyer.
Hello, dear County Council. Let me give you an example of which we have firsthand knowledge. At Rhodes High School, there were boys going into the girls' bathrooms, and teachers were afraid to do anything about it because of the policies of the Obama administration that were being so highly publicized. Would your 3-member commission be helpful to alleviate the fears of these teachers so that they could stop these boys from going into the girls' bathroom? There are now examples all over our country where sexual predators have taken advantage of this hesitation to stop them. They see the hesitation as a weakness and a crack they can go through. Now you're talking about employees of all places of public accommodation having to fear if they would take action to stop a sexual deviant from entering a bathroom, locker room, or even a shower room. This is moral insanity. Do not be deceived. There are wicked persons in this city that are driven by ungodly lusts, and they will take advantage of this hesitation on the part of employees to stop them. I'm a retired Cleveland school teacher, and in the principal's office there was a large board overflowing with the pictures of convicted sexual predators to beware of, and these are only the ones that have been caught and convicted. One principal spoke to me about concerns about the vulnerability of the school's security on election day, when the predators might take advantage of the school's openness because of its being a voting location. It's my understanding that this was a primary consideration in closing the schools on election days. There is good thinking in these considerations. Now is the time for the county council to have good thinking. If you proceed in directions that will cause hesitation for sexual predators to be stopped from their deviant directions, we will no longer be able to trust our children to be in those places of public accommodation. We should not have to pay taxes to support places where we cannot trust for our children to be, and we will refuse to vote for any levy that would fund those places of public accommodation where there would be hesitation and fear to maintain a decent and safe environment. Don't think that you're really helping the LGBT community by catering to them and being sympathetic to them. You're actually hurting them. God's word, the Bible, is clear. They that do such things will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Thank you.
Well, there you go.
The next speaker is Elijah. I'm sorry, I don't know your last name. Can you spell it? Turon? A-N. Thank you.
Council members, executive, thank you for having me here today. Yesterday, we commemorated 17 years since the September 11th attacks. I served before, during, and after that horrible day, and my fellow service members, straight and queer alike, endured many hardships and dangers. We did so in the fervent belief that all people, all human beings, are deserving of respect, inclusion, and acceptance, and that all rights and freedoms should be respected. As a Clevelander, I believe that Cuyahoga County is a land and a place where all should be welcome. Make no mistake, Ordinance 9 is a good thing. It will make us safer. It will make us prosperous. And most importantly, voting for Ordinance 9 is the right thing to do. Council members, do the right thing. Honor the sacrifice of my fellow veterans and service members and pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Ms. Anita Gray. Anita Gray.
Thank you. I appreciate being here today. I respect both sides of this issue, but I'm here representing not only myself, a 70-year-old lifelong resident of Cuyahoga County, but also I'm here representing the Anti-Defamation League, which is a 103-year-old civil rights and human rights organization with 27 offices here in the United States. I am speaking in support of the ordinance number 2018-0009. We delivered a letter to each of you later this afternoon. I'm not sure you received it. But in addition to creating a Human Rights Commission, which we believe is badly needed here in the county, this legislation would provide very, very important critical anti-discrimination practices and protections for the members of the LGBTQ community. The Anti-Defamation League worked for 13 years heading up a coalition nationally that would provide protections along all of the lines. It's a federal piece of legislation called the James Byrd Matthew Shepard Federal Hate Crimes Law. We would like to get our county to recognize all of the provisions in that, in addition to the state of Ohio to recognize the provisions. There are two that are missing. One is LGBT rights. The other is disability. So no one should be discriminated in our world, we believe, against in workplace and housing, in public accommodations, simply because of their sexual orientation or their gender disability or their disability, their handicaps. Just that they should not be discriminated against because of race, because of religion, because of color, natural origin. It's just simply wrong. We live in a country where we have freedoms. We're exercising on both sides of this coin today, wonderful freedoms. And as a gentleman before me spoke about what happened yesterday, which I know is etched in all of our hearts, I think, and we think at the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, that it's extremely important for the county to step up and do what's right on this piece of legislation. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. John Nosek.
Hello, my name is John Nosek. I'm almost 69 years old, and I've been a lifelong resident of Cuyahoga County. I have been a gay rights activist since 1975 and have struggled during this entire time with my partner, Leon Stevens, with whom I've been with for 43 years. We co-founded the LGBT Center here in Cleveland back in that time. And I have to tell you, as both Leon and I were the co-managers of Cleveland's first LGBT newspaper, High Gear, we went to several different publishing companies here in Greater Cleveland and were rejected by everyone back in 1975. And the only people who would agree to publish and print our newspaper was the Call and Post. Thank you, William O. Walker. And some of the comments that were made earlier about how dangerous LGBT people were also made against our African American brothers and sisters some 30 or 40 years ago. And I just want the council to think about that. Human rights is an evolving thing. There is room for inclusion for everyone. And I think it's important to know that we are fighting for equal rights, not special rights. We want those who are against this commission to have the same rights as we do. We just want to have equal rights. And those people who are concerned about transgender people going into bathrooms, I would remind this council that if you're interested, or the opposition is interested, there are 6 municipalities in Cuyahoga County that have had LGBT protections for some time. Look at the data. Has there been any experiences of people actually being molested in restrooms as is alleged? We have data, we have a history and track record here. And lastly, I would just like to say, we all stood for the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of this meeting, and the last words are liberty and justice for all, and that includes the LGBT community as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Joel Royalty.
Mr. President, council members, thank you for this. I know it adds significantly to the time of the meeting tonight, but I appreciate your patience. I'm taking this opportunity to express my opposition to the proposed Human Rights Commission for Cuyahoga County. As pastor of the Broadview Heights Baptist Church and representative of that body, I have grave concerns about the effects of such a commission. I am not opposed at all to basic human rights. As a matter of fact, I believe our country was founded on that, and I believe that we have the foundational human rights that every human deserves. I know also, though, that the basic logic for this is wrong. We've elevated so-called identity to a level of human rights that cause much confusion and ultimately cannot be enforced without the encroachment on the rights of other individuals. That adds a lot of chaos to a community. As I see it, as evidenced in many cases around the country recently, we give rights to people according to their identity. It gives then also a legal right to go against others who might disagree in a very fundamental fashion. If we're going to protect some who live in Cuyahoga County, we need to protect all, including the houses of worship and businesses and institutions run by people of conviction that would be the target of these attacks. I have 3 primary concerns tonight, among others I'll leave with you. Number 1, what protection is given to those who, with firm and consistently held beliefs, would disagree with the ideas of a subjective gender identity? Number 2, what oversight would this 3-person council have so as not to overstep their bounds, i.e., they are not elected, they are not accountable to the electorate. I encourage you to consider that. And then lastly, raising gender identity to the level of civil rights movement is, quite honestly, in my opinion, intellectually dishonest, but also fundamentally flawed. We have protections already in place to protect people as humans, and those rights are well protected within our Constitution. We cannot tell somebody where they can live or where they can go to school or where they can even use the restroom as we sit right now. But the fact of the matter is, by raising gender identity, something that is intrinsically subjective, to a level of racial or religious status, we descend to a sort of mass confusion and chaos that is not equitable nor logical. You need not fear being viewed as discriminatory for upholding logical and long-held, well-established truths about the difference between a man and a woman. You do need to uphold your position and responsibility to protect all people of our county, not just a small chosen few. I urge you as a council to table this proposition. It is not well written, it's confusing, it has numerous contradictory and confusing statements, and in addition, it provides a one-sided protection that is both redundant and unnecessary. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Ms. Heather Light.
Hi, thank you, council members, for making me speak today, and thank you for those who came before me. Those of you who opposed this, you gave me my talking points. I am someone who lives and works in Cuyahoga County. I am someone's daughter. I am someone's sister. I am someone's granddaughter. I am the friend. I share a very deep friendship with a transgender person. I am also a practicing Catholic. Make no mistake, I support the passage of Ordinance 9. I want to continue to live in a county that protects everyone who lives here and that treats everyone the way I want to be treated. make no mistake, this girl, this practicing Catholic girl who tries to live every day with what's on her mind, on her lips, and in her heart, the way Jesus lived his life, supports this ordinance and wants you all to as well. Thank you.
Mr. Doug Deckert?
Thank you, council members, for allowing me to speak to you and express my opposition to the human rights ordinance that's being proposed. And I'd like to tell you in 3 brief statements why I, as a taxpayer and citizen, oppose it. First, I believe that the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the existing federal and state laws already protect the rights of the members of the LGBT community. Secondly, I believe it's unwise to have individuals who are not elected as judges act like judges and being able to levy fines as they would see fit. Thirdly, I believe that the proposed ordinance would create unnecessary bureaucracy, will waste precious county resources, and therefore absolutely should not be enacted. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Peter Corrigan.
Hi, thanks everybody. Thanks council for allowing us to speak. My name is Peter Corrigan. I'm a concerned citizen. I stand in opposition. The proposed ordinance to establish a commission on human rights is a dramatic overreach beyond existing county code and usurps the function of the state of Ohio to enforce transgressions on civil rights. A disagreement over how the state conducts its business is not justification alone for allocation of county taxpayer money to start a separate, parallel, and redundant commission which essentially can be overridden with little effort on the part of the state. The proper way to contest discrimination would be to effect changes in state and federal law rather than to replicate state efforts and to waste county resources simply to make a point. Our common pleas dockets are already full. Establishing a commission will add useless lawsuits and legal actions, ultimately costing the county even more and yet still leading to inconclusive results. Our county is already financially stressed and imposes the highest sales taxes in the state. The anxiousness to incorporate yet another expensive commission into its scope of responsibility is not a responsible vote. We should be more concerned with using our scarce resources to combat more compelling problems involving child violence, poverty, illiteracy, and the general health and welfare of so many of our impoverished citizens. These are the real priorities for this council. Finally, this proposed ordinance sends a clear and strong message to businesses as small as 4 people that our local county government is aggressive in its attempts to ignore the state's existing legal framework and more than willing to allow businesses and taxpayers to bear the cost of this crusade. Under such conditions, businesses would be foolish to take risks to establish, relocate, grow, and expand into our area. This is a huge stop sign for growth. Cuyahoga County recovery continues to stagnate. We are still 32,000 jobs fewer than in 2008, the start of the Great Recession. Our wage growth has been flat, and we have at best a fragile recovery which lags behind the rest of the state and the rest of the country by notable margins. We are being left behind. The last thing we need to do is to add a layer of regulation which can effectively punish business, especially small business. Please reconsider this vote and find another way to work with the legislators in Columbus to achieve your goals, rather than to pass this cost on to all of us and to chase our businesses away. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Ms. Ginny Millis?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I am a very proud citizen of Cuyahoga County today because the council, as expressed through its ordinance, is making a value statement. And I think it upholds our greatest values as expressed through all the world's religions, as well all the greatest governments, that we are a people that respects each other, treats each other well, with loving acts of kindness, and with equality for all. We all know the founding fathers have expressed those same values: equality, equal justice for all. And as Cuyahoga County is such a pivotal county in elections, and with what's going on in the greater world in America, I am again so proud that you have made a value statement that equality for all is important. And there is some risk that you have taken in doing this, but no great achievement is done without risk. And we have heard, and I will respect the opinions that came before me, but I think as history teaches, as the arc of social justice has informed us with all great changes, and we can include civil rights and many other rights that have been fought. They have occurred in public accommodations. They have occurred in bathrooms. And we got through that as a people, and we are a better people for having done so. And so, again, I am so proud. My name is Ginny Millis. I am a transgender woman, a proud woman. I know there's much misunderstanding about what that means. People cannot wrap their head around the fact that you might be born a certain gender, but your head and your heart and your soul may be a differing gender. I would ask, I know there's much fear in bathrooms, and safety is a good thing for everybody, but the fear expressed is the fear that has come before us, as have all the other arguments resisting social change, resisting equality. Please pass this legislation. Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Robert Bodie.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Robert Bodie. I live in Westlake. I am personally opposed to the establishment of a Human Rights Commission in Cuyahoga County for at least 3 primary reasons. First of all, state law does not appear to grant any authority to county governments to establish such commissions, and in fact likely prohibits it. Hence, the establishment of such a commission is likely illegal, and this should be further investigated before you try to perform an illegal act. Second, the current county administration cannot even perform its current duties satisfactorily. The county is yet again under FBI investigation for corruption in its incompetent attempt to upgrade its computer services. It cannot protect the children under its supervision, and it is desperately trying to hide its failures from public disclosure. Fix these problems first. Those are your priorities. Now is not the time to add additional duties and expenses to an already incompetent county government. And finally, and most importantly, the proposed commission will harm small businesses with ambiguous and subjective regulations while rewarding plaintiffs' attorneys. I am a small business owner, and I have read your proposed bill, and it makes no sense. I cannot know as a business what falls in it or out of it, and it will increase my personal expenses to try to comply with it without any knowledge of whether my compliance is proper or not. It is ambiguous. It is poorly written. This is a toxic idea that will discourage small businesses from operating in this county. Therefore, I oppose this commission, as should you all. Thank you.
Mr. Randall Johnson.
I want to thank the council for having me today and letting me speak. My name's Randall Johnson. I'm a citizen of Cuyahoga County. I grew up here. I got kids that live here. I am against this 100%. I have a daughter, a son. I have a newborn on the way. This is wrong. As a Christian, this is wrong. As a human being, this is wrong. And that's all.
Ms. Susan Becker.
Hello, everyone. My name is Susan Becker. I'm General Counsel of the ACLU of Ohio, and I'm also an attorney who's spent about 30 years representing clients on a pro bono basis, specifically LGBTQ clients who've experienced discrimination, verbal harassment, and even physical assaults in a wide range of settings. I think it would really help us all to take a deep breath right now and think about what this ordinance is not. What it is not is a war on women. I would remind you that the lesbian and the trans women who'd be protected by this ordinance are women. Another thing is it's not a war on religion. Many people of faith are fierce advocates of LGBT equality. And those who are not will not be any way affected by this ordinance in terms of practicing their religion, in terms of spreading their view of LGBT people, teaching their children. None of that will be affected by this ordinance. And as we all know, the religion clauses of the U.S. and the Ohio Constitution can't be used as swords to deny people rights or to treat them unfairly. It can be used as a shield to protect people and their religious beliefs, and none of that will be affected by the passage of this ordinance. Probably most importantly, what this ordinance absolutely is not is a license for men or boys on hormones to engage in criminal behavior in restrooms. We already have lots of laws that govern that. There are existing laws on assault, both sexual and regular assault, on indecent exposure, on lewdness, on stalking. None of those laws are changed by this, and in fact, this ordinance will do nothing to create a defense to that. And I can tell you that we're hearing about data out there. There is not any sound data anywhere. There's a few isolated incidents that have nothing to do with the passage of an ordinance when a man has inappropriately gone into a restroom. Is it a concern? It's a concern, but it's a concern handled by criminal laws as they exist. So what is it? If it isn't all of these things, what is this ordinance? Well, it's a step, and it's a very small step towards creating a county, towards creating a community in which everyone, including LGBT persons, are treated equally and treated fairly, meaning that everyone, including LGBT people, can go to work, they can rent an apartment, they can go grocery shopping, they can go to the theater, they can take in a ball game without worry about being treated unfairly, by being rejected, by being denied services. In other words, it's just an ordinance, a small step towards treating everyone the way we should all be treated. I can't stress enough that this ordinance does not create any special rights for anyone. It's just, as I said, a small step forward to leveling the playing field, not putting anyone on a higher pedestal. Finally, and I realize I'm out of time, but I just wanted to encourage two other things very quickly. One I've mentioned before is I encourage you again to consider expanding the remedies that are available for people who are victimized by discrimination under this ordinance. And also, I would just ask you to consider that there are already existing exemptions for religious employers and people, religious organizations that own housing in here. And I think really any effort to greatly expand exemptions based on religious or any other basis is going to result in a law that has no effect whatsoever, because every individual will get to decide based on his or her religious views what the secular rights of LGBT people should be. Thank you very much for your time, and apologize for running over.
Thank you.
Mr. Conrad Lindes.
Good evening. I'm Conrad Lindes. I live in Middleburg Heights. The stated goal of proposed County Council Resolution 02018-009 to promote principles of diversity, inclusion, harmony, and equal treatment for all is inherently flawed. As a physician, I would not give equal treatment to a 40-year-old and to a 4-year-old, or to a 500-pound man and a 100-pound woman. As proposed, this lofty-sounding purpose and intent to end discrimination actually makes the proposed commission the sole and entirely subjective arbiter of all aspects of our culture. Section 1501.03A4 of the legislation makes it clear that the commission would only deal with issues relating to sexual orientation and gender identity and expression. All other cases would be referred to existing state and federal authorities. The proposed legislation would establish a protected class not recognized at the state or federal level of gender identity. For the county to do this would expose the county and any parties coming before the commission to onerous and expensive legal challenges of any of the commission's decrees. A person may claim to have a certain gender identity based on nothing but his or her stated thoughts and feelings. To create a legally protected class based on what could be a deeply held belief or a fleeting whim sets a dangerous precedent. If we give one such class protection, why not all? A person who is a Democrat could claim discrimination if he or she was not hired by a person who happened to be a Republican. While the commission is supposed to promote the public welfare of all, it actually panders to a tiny fraction of the population while trampling the dignity and privacy of the other 99%. We Americans have made a commitment to protect the privacy of women in all aspects of their sexuality. We recognize the special physical and emotional vulnerability of women with laws against voyeurism, stalking, etc. Under the proposed legislation, an XY person could walk into a woman's locker room stating that he was feeling like a she, and any criticism of such behavior could be prosecuted by the commission as discriminatory. May we as a society hamper the desires and self-proclaimed rights of even the smallest minority? Yes. Smokers think they need to smoke and want to exhibit their behavior by smoking in public. But our society has determined that to smoke in public is not a right and that it can be restricted or denied with impunity for the protection of non-smokers. The same reasoning can be applied to forbidding persons who are male from entering places of privacy for females and vice versa. Finally, the very nature of this Human Rights Commission as proposed is contrary to our foundations of the separation of powers. The three commissioners to be appointed by the county have no purpose other than to have quarterly meetings. All the power is in the appointed executive who reports to nobody but the county executive. And the commission would exert legislative, judicial, and executive functions without any accountability to the voter. This is a step toward tyranny. Thank you.
Mr. David Tryon.
Council President Brady, County Executive Budish, and council members, thank you for the opportunity to address you. The objective of Ordinance 2018-9 is to, quote, to protect and safeguard the rights and opportunities of all persons to be free from all forms of discrimination. This is a laudable and wonderful objective, which I endorse. However, I have some structural and practical concerns about this proposed ordinance. First, I believe that this ordinance does not do what it's supposed to do. I believe that over 20% of the employees in Cuyahoga County are government employees. I believe that is about 120,000 employees. As I have read the ordinance, it appears to me that it does not protect government employees and therefore does not include a large group of employees. Now, a councilman from one of the cities recently that spoke earlier said that he thought it did cover them, and somebody else said it was confusing, so I share in that confusion. But if it does not include those government employees, it doesn't include many employees that it supposedly covers. So you're imposing a burden on private employers, but not on the employees of Cuyahoga County, the City of Cleveland, the RTA, and the suburbs are not protected by this ordinance. If this ordinance is so important, then you should live by it, and so should all the governments in Cuyahoga County. Frankly, I believe that Americans are tired of governments telling them what they can and cannot do, but they exempt themselves. Along the same lines, it appears to me that employees of labor organizations or unions are not included either. Section 1502B1 precludes employers, but not unions, from discriminating in hiring practices. By contrast, Section B, C, and D of that same subsections B, C, and D explicitly include both employers and labor organizations in those prohibitions. Some union employees might wonder why they don't enjoy the same protections which other employees enjoy. Second, while I recognize that many large employers may endorse this ordinance, the small businesses, which are the backbone of our economy and which will be the most strongly affected, are not given a voice here. I understand that over 90% of businesses in Cuyahoga County have fewer than 50 employees. They would be impacted by this proposed ordinance more than large employers, because this is another regulation with which they will have to make sure they are complying. If they are accused of violating this ordinance, then they will have to lawyer up and spend time, money, and effort figuring out the law, fighting or addressing the complaint filed against them, all to the detriment of the core activity of their business. Large employers already have mechanisms and lawyers to help them navigate the myriad of rules and regulations out there. They have compliance officers, in-house legal counsel, risk departments, and human resource directors and other staff to monitor and address these issues. Small businesses have none of these. One complaint, whether legitimate or not, can kill a small business and eliminate all employees employed there. Your exemption for employers with only 4 employees is far too narrow, in my opinion. Fourth, let me just say real quick, the Ohio Constitution provides a right to trial by jury. This does not provide that right to a trial by jury for those that are accused. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. David Douglas?
Councilman Brady, Executive Budish, council members, thank you for allowing this dialogue. I think it's been educational for me to hear both perspectives tonight, and I think that the dialogue that we allow through our government is a wonderful thing. I'm here in support of this legislation. I'm a father. I'm a business owner. I'm an attorney. We have a small organization, only 35 people, but this legislation, I think, helps Cuyahoga County attract employees. We need to be able to attract qualified, talented, educated employees. As most of you probably already know, in today's market, there's a shortage of people who can do the skilled work that needs to be done. Ohio, unfortunately, doesn't have a great reputation nationally because of Issue 1 in 2004, which discriminated greatly against the LGBTQ community. So this is a great first step in remedying that, and hopefully the state of Ohio will follow this good example. This legislation, like any legislation, is probably not perfect now, but through the comments you've heard tonight, I think you will be able to improve it. It is sound. It follows a well-ordered mechanism that many other administrative boards already follow. It allows for a commission to make a decision. It allows for that decision to be appealed to the Cuyahoga Common Pleas Court so that it can get full judicial review if necessary. It also addresses an issue that's very important: equality for all. This is not asking for special rights, it's asking for everyone to be treated equally. The same concept that Abraham Lincoln advocated for with the 14th Amendment, the same thing that our Pledge of Allegiance says with liberty and justice for all, that's what this does. Because for many, many years, the LGBTQ community and the transgender community has been discriminated against. I'm aware of it personally in this past year where a lesbian couple was literally forced out of their own home in Fairview Park when they were assaulted, verbally abused, physically abused on such a regular basis that they literally moved out of the county because the Fairview Park police, as helpful as they tried to be, told them there's nothing we can do to protect you. So this is a great start. I encourage you to pass it. Thank you very much.
Ms. Dorothy McGuire?
Hello, Council. Thank you for serving. I would like to express my sincere opposition to this legislation. I see that you're not only picking sides in matter of commerce and equal access, but in mere social interaction. People who have this impression, this worldview, your subjective worldview does not constitute objective reality on my part. I don't want any more expansive government. We have too much government already. I think this is offensive to the freedom of religion, of speech, of assembly, of association. And as was mentioned, we have a county to run. And I don't see why we're taking on more. Don't you have enough on your plate? I am not eager to face any pronoun police, and I don't think anyone should be forced to. So, summing up, please do not put words in my mouth. Do not impute motives to my actions. Do not slander my religion, and do not insult my holy book. Thank you.
Ms. Gwen Stembridge.
Good evening, Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity today. I wanted to clarify a few things that I've heard. I wanted to make sure we have an understanding. So I'm Gwen Stembridge. I'm with Equality Ohio. One thing I heard I wanted to clear up. This legislation does not require cities to change anything about their practices. It simply gives local residents a remedy when they do experience discrimination. So cities have no need to change their current practices or their current policies. It's just the county that is updating. This is also not a bathroom bill. This ordinance does not allow anyone to enter a restroom in order to harm anyone else. It simply allows people to use the restroom as we all currently do according to our gender identity. Third, a business owner does not need to know the intimate details about someone's identity or their religion in order to treat them fairly. All this ordinance would ask is that people be treated fairly and equally. I personally do not have kids. This is my fourth piece here. I don't have kids, but every time I speak with a group of young people, I am encouraged by how much they expand my view of the diversity that exists in our world. I learn things every time I talk with young people, and they expand my mind and help me to understand that this arc is bending toward justice, but also toward expansion of affirmation of people and the beautiful diversity that we bring. So thank you so much.
Shannon and Michael Miller.
Thank you so much for having us here today. Michael and I are parents of two children who are now 10 and 12. I remember very distinctly the first time you hold them when they're so small and vulnerable, and we're here today to talk about their protections because I promised both my children the day they were born that I would love them unconditionally and always protect them. Both of my children were born in June, and both were assigned male at birth. The story of how we discovered that one of our children's true gender identity was different than the biological sex assigned at birth was one of understanding and growth that would take far too much time today. Although we did not understand enough when our young child said, "I'm a girl," that we should respect her and treat her as the girl she truly is, we did understand we had a long road ahead of us. I made the promise again to love her unconditionally and protect both of my children. In the beginning, it was easy because our world was small. And any resistance to gender decisions outside the norms were met with logical things like, toys are for kids and clothes are for kids, not for boys or girls. Everybody can enjoy them. Our world felt big with family and friends, but it was really small. It expanded in preschool, where new groups of people had ideas and questions about my child who defied gender norms. To protect her, we chose a progressive preschool, and we chose play dates around those who shared support for our children. Our world was bigger, but it was still small. Our children were still loved unconditionally, and we could still protect them. Our world grew again in elementary school, and so did our child's need to express her gender identity beyond toys and costumes to everyday clothes and hair pieces. Our school went from 40 kids we knew intimately to 240 we knew peripherally. Our love never wavered, but our fear of being able to protect her began to grow. And in kindergarten, we experienced our first hostile parent, a 52-year-old man who would come into her classroom and stand between her so she could not get her work done or talk to other kids. And he also went on her playground, and her principal told her, "There are no laws to protect you," and did nothing. Despite our unconditional love, our grip on protecting her started to slip at a frightful pace. She experienced anxiety, fear of going to school on a daily basis, nightmares, and at a very young age, lost faith and trust in the world around her and the people who could protect her. At 6, my child told me, "There will always be people who hate me without even knowing." I'm sorry, I'm crying, but that's just heartbreaking to hear your child say. I have made my promise over and over again to love her unconditionally, but I can't always protect her. So I'm asking you, if we're talking about the protection of children, that my child is 10, and I'm asking you to protect her too. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Mr. Kevin Schmatzer. Kevin Schmatzer.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Schmatzer. I work for the City of Cleveland under Mayor Frank Jackson. I'm also a recent appointment as a liaison to the LGBT community. That's how important this is. Mayor Jackson, our mayor in our City of Cleveland, has made a position on this to help out with city rights, equal rights, government rights, equality rights. I've heard a few things here today. Why should we grant special rights or protected rights or catering to LGB? Well, first of all, it's LGBTQ for the individual who forgot the T and the Q. So get that correct, please. But why is this? Well, you know what, though, maybe this was discussed in 1920s. This was discussed in 1920s, why we should grant special rights. And you know what it was for? It was passed in June 4th of 1919, and that was the right for women to vote. But there was people looking at why should that have that special right? In 1964, there was the Civil Rights Act. Well, why should we have this special rights? You know, it was also included for a lot of discrimination, especially with my African-American brothers and sisters that were going on back in 1964, where that passed. Why should we do this today? It needs to be done. We don't need to think about this. We don't need to deliberate about it like what we've heard. Now is the time. Economic, you know, I've also heard economic issues. Well, we're a small business. We can't afford this. Or this is going to cost the county too much. Let me throw a few things what happened in North Carolina a couple years ago, okay? So if you don't think you can afford this or anything like that, what does 3.76 mean? It's not $3.76. It's not $376,000. It's $3.76 billion that cost the state of North Carolina when they passed that ludicrous bathroom bill. $3.76 billion. What happened with that? PayPal had a corporate expansion. They pulled it. $500 million that would have landed a lot of jobs over there. They said, no, we're not going to do it. What also happened? The NBA All-Star game pulled out. Bruce Springsteen is a member of the LGBTQ community, but he's got family and friends who are. Pearl Jam, many of you are Pearl Jam fans, they pulled out. Salesforce, Mark Bainoff, the corporate executive, said, you know what, though, this isn't right. I have employees. My employees have family, friends, aunts, uncle, grandparents, kids who are part of this community, and I want them protected. And my $57 billion company is not in support of this. So when you say we can't afford this, these are numbers. And if you think I'm standing here lying, Google it. You'll find this. You know, the RNC made a decision to come here a few years ago. And you know what, one of the biggest things for the Republican National Convention, let me repeat that. The Republican National Convention that made a decision to come here, one of the big reasons why they came here is because the gay games came here prior. And we had a $52 million economic impact in Cleveland. When all the people from all over the world that we welcomed here who were LGBTQ and married with kids that participated with this, that came here and took part of this event. Our small businesses, East 4th Street ran out of food. That's a great problem to have. So that's something I wanted to focus on a lot of the arguments that have been made on this. But when I hear about the economic issues, we can't afford this, and we shouldn't do it. We need to think about this. We need to talk about it. The time is now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Rob Rivera.
Hi, good evening, Executive Budish, members of council. Again, I want to echo other people's gratitude for having this forum. I'm a school teacher, I'm a history teacher, I'm an activist, I'm a gay man, I'm a husband, I'm an uncle, a brother, a son, family full of military veterans. I have a nephew in Afghanistan doing his 3rd tour. And I thought I'd come in here today and talk about the arc of history and talk about, you know, the moral compass and all of these wonderful things. But I think you all know that. And the historian teacher in me doesn't need to give you a lecture. And then I sat back there and I realized, you know, it's fascinating. Nothing gets people to a local government meeting like discrimination. Because that's remarkable, because I've been in Lakewood, Cleveland, Cleveland Heights, South Euclid, and then in East Cleveland promoting local ordinances like these. You know what's interesting to me? Do you know the community where we got zero opposition? East Cleveland. It was East Cleveland where we got zero opposition, where the African American community stood up, sat down with the LGBT community member, many who were also African American, and learned and realized that the ordinance was good for that city. It was good for that city. And so I stand here today, I guess, to tell you, you've heard the arguments on both sides, and it seems to me, I'm a big picture guy. On one side, you have fear and you have threats. And on the other side, you have justice and equality. It's a pretty simple choice. I heard someone say earlier in opposition, are you telling me that our sense of morality has changed that much in a century? You bet your you-know-what it's changed that much in a century. And because it's changed that much in a century, look at the faces on this council. Look at the folks in this community. I'm glad our sense of morality has changed over the past century, and what you're doing here today advances that sense of morality and justice ever so slightly, looking forward to the next century. Remember, you have a chance to vote on the right side of history, or you have a chance to look at future generations and say you voted against equality and you voted essentially for discrimination. I'm proud of council for stepping up like this. I hope that those in opposition will realize this does no harm to them. It makes us a better county. Our nation has always been aspirational. Those words in our founding documents were aspirational, but they were not a reality for more than half of our country at that time. Wrap your minds around that. When our country was founded, more than 2/3 of our country did not enjoy those rights listed in there. The 200+ year journey we've been on is to get to moments like this. So I thank you for taking this under consideration. I stand in support as a proud resident of Cuyahoga County. Thank you.
The final speaker is Ms. Donna Walker.
Wow. I think it's more than the cube.
My main concern are the children. And there was an article on Google about a young man who was a transgender, and he was assigned to a female jail. And his reassignment had not been completed, so he ended up raping 4 women in the jail. I think you guys need to do some more investigation on it, because what about the people that are from the alternative lifestyle that haven't completed their reassignment process completely? The children are the ones that come first. That's what I want you to worry about when you go home tonight and you make this decision. I notice everybody is referencing civil rights and human rights. But the children have the rights and they're the future. And if you're not talking about assigning where, wait a minute, the pedophiles who are sometimes pretenders that might be in the bathrooms, I need you to worry about the children. I'm not concerned about these grown folks because I can't put them in heaven or hell. And I'm really pissed off that we got a crowded room, but when we was talking about 45 babies being dead, you had less than 15 folks. But I noticed everybody can come here about this alternative lifestyle ordinance. So what I want you guys to do, because I'm still talking about babies, and I don't care what type of babies they are, okay? I want you to be conscious of the babies that go in the bathroom. And if you're not willing to spend some money on assigning security guards, female security guards in these bathrooms and male security guards where these babies, be it little boys, little girls, where these babies are safe. That's what I want you to go home tonight and think about. It's about the children. Because, see, without a struggle, you don't have a story to tell. And, you know, that goes for whether you're straight or you're dealing in the alternative lifestyle. But like I said, I can't put you in heaven or hell. But what I can do is hold y'all accountable. Because it's about the babies. And that's what y'all have to go home and sleep about. The decisions you make, it's about the babies. And without a struggle, nobody has a testimony. And like I said, I really wish this crowd was here when we was talking about 45 babies being killed in Cuyahoga County. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all for coming down. It's one of the largest groups we've ever had come down. I think it's maybe one of two issues over the last 7.5 years that's drawn this many people to speak their mind. So thank you. This is a public forum, and we appreciate your attendance. The council will take a 5-minute break, more or less, before we have a regular meeting. Okay, we're finished with public comment. And now I need a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
So, second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved for the August 7th, 2008 regular meeting. Is there a message from the county executive?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. Since Councilman Miller is not here to speak about the budget resolution, I want to mention one item in the resolution. We want to do everything possible to protect every child in our county. Following the tragic death of Anaya Day Garrett, we appointed an expert panel to make recommendations, and those recommendations have led us to ask the council for funds to implement 3 changes to the Department of Children and Family Services. First, this budget resolution will enable us to hire 10 additional retired law enforcement officers to assist with investigations. Second, it will enable us to hire 12 additional social workers to bring the overall child protection specialist staff to 500. And third, it will fund the Harvard Collaborative. All of these will help us to protect our children in this county. And I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Legislation introduced by council. Consideration of resolutions of council for first reading and referral to committee.
Resolution number 2018-0168, supporting an application for funding under the Clean Ohio Fund Green Space Conservation Program, available through the Ohio Public Works Commission on behalf of Tinkers Creek Watershed Partners for the conservation of ecologically significant areas in Bear Creek Stream Restoration Phase 2 in the city of Warrensville Heights.
And this will go to Environment and Sustainability Committee.
Resolution number 2018-0169, supporting an application for funding on behalf of West Creek Conservancy for Dusty Goldenrod Phase 2 in the city of Highland Heights.
This will also go to Councilwoman Simon's committee.
Resolution number 2018-0170, supporting an application for funding on behalf of West Creek Conservancy for West Creek Greenway Phase 5 in the city of Parma.
To the Environmental Committee as well.
Resolution number 2018-0171, supporting an application for funding on behalf of the Western Reserve Land Conservancy for Brecksville Upland Preserve Extension in the city of Brecksville.
Same committee.
Resolution number 2018-0172, supporting an application for funding on behalf of the Western Reserve Land Conservancy for Lower Big Creek Trail Connector in the city of Cleveland.
Also to the Environmental Committee. Legislation introduced by the executive, consideration of resolutions for first reading adoption under suspension of the rules. Could I have a motion to suspend the rules?
Mr. President, I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. The rules are suspended.
Resolution number 2018-0173, amending the 2018-2019 biennial operating budget for 2018 by providing for additional fiscal appropriations for appropriation transfers and for cash transfers.
Move to adopt.
Moved and seconded. Again, Mr. Miller's not here today. The county executive spoke to the issue. This was introduced by the administration. As he indicated, there's $1.6 million for DCFS in this legislation. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor add Chantel Brown's name. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
Resolution number 2018-0174, approving an amendment to a collective bargaining agreement between Cuyahoga County and American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Ohio Council 8, Local 1746, AFL-CIO, representing approximately 1,220 employees in various classifications in the Departments of Health and Human Services and Public Works for the period July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2020, to eliminate Article 30, funeral leave, and to subject bargaining unit employees to the Cuyahoga County Employee Handbook bereavement leave provision, directing that funds necessary to implement the amendment be budgeted and appropriated.
Move to adopt. Second. This item was obviously discussed quite a long time ago now in an executive session, as were the next three items on the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it. Resolution is adopted.
Resolution number 2018-0175, approving a collective bargaining agreement between Cuyahoga County and Cleveland Building and Construction Trades Council, representing approximately 82 employees and 26 classifications at the Department of Public Works for the period July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2021, directing that funds necessary to implement the collective bargaining agreement be budgeted and appropriated.
Move to adopt. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it. The resolution is adopted.
Abstain.
I'm sorry. Councilman Gallagher abstains.
Resolution number 2018-0176, approving a collective bargaining agreement between Cuyahoga County and Teamsters Truck Drivers Union, Local 407, representing approximately 20 employees in the classifications of investigator and investigator assistant at the Department of Health and Human Services, Cuyahoga Job and Family Services, for the period July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2021, directing that funds necessary to implement the collective bargaining agreement be budgeted and appropriate.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. On R 2018-0177, it was approached by the law department right before the meeting, and they've asked us to pull this item for this evening. So we will. Consideration of resolutions for first reading and referral to committee.
Resolution number 2018-0178, confirming the county executive's reappointment of Matthew P. Carroll to serve on the Gateway Economic Development Corporation of Greater Cleveland Board of Trustees for an unexpired term ending May 31, 2022.
And this item will be referred to Human Resources.
Resolution number 2018-0179, confirming the county executive's appointment of Fred M. DeGrandis to serve on the Metro Health System Board of Trustees for an unexpired term ending February 18, 2021.
And This will also be referred to Human Resources and Appointments.
Resolution number 2018-0180, confirming the county executive's appointment of various individuals to serve on the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County for various unexpired terms as printed on the agenda.
And this will also be referred to HR.
Resolution number 2018-0181, making an award on requisition number 42986 to Terrace Construction Company Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $2,812,624.93 for the Bradford Road Relief Sewer and Pump Station Elimination Project in the city of Brecksville.
This will be referred to Public Works.
Resolution number 2018-0182, making an award on requisition number 42993 to LaCourcie Garden Center, doing business as LaCourcie Company, in the amount not to exceed $573,620.50 for the Halley Warehouse Parking Lot Renovation Project.
This will also be referred to Public Works.
Resolution number 2018-0183, making an award on requisition number 43224 to Carvo Companies Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $1,354,515.80 for construction of future Amazon site perimeter roads, Euclid Avenue, Babbitt Road, Lakeland Boulevard, St. Clair Avenue, East 260th Street, and Bluestone Boulevard in the city of Euclid, authorizing the county engineer on behalf of the county executive to make an application for allocation from county motor vehicle $7.50 license tax funds in the amount of $300,000 to fund a portion of said contract.
Public Works.
Resolution number 2018-0184, authorizing an agreement of cooperation with City of Independence in connection with replacement of Old Rockside Road Bridge number 00.42 over the Cuyahoga River in the City of Independence and Village of Valley View. Total estimated project cost $5,900,000.
Public Works.
Resolution number 2018-0185, authorizing a development loan in the amount not to exceed $10 million to Playhouse Square Foundation for the benefit of the Lumen at Playhouse Square project to be located at 1600 Euclid Avenue in the city of Cleveland.
This will be referred to Economic Development.
Resolution number 2018-0186, authorizing amendments to contract numbers CE 1600-274 and CE 1601-169 with Infor Incorporated for information technology services and solutions for the Enterprise Resource Planning System to clarify the time period of the original contracts as October 27, 2016 through October 26, 2021, to change the scope of services and the terms effective October 9, 2018, and to increase the total amount not to exceed from $9,036,696 to $11,801,685.
Referred to Finance.
Resolution number 2018-0187, authorizing a contract with Ohio Guidestone in the amount not to exceed $646,688 for functional family therapy and functional family therapy wraparound aftercare services for the period July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019.
Referred to Public Safety.
Resolution number 2018-0188, authorizing an amendment to agreement number AG 18010 with City of Cleveland Department of Public Health for administration and coordination for expansion of the Moms First program in connection with the Invest in Children program for the period January 1, 2018 through December 31, 2019, to change the scope of services effective January 1, 2018, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $774,940.
Education. All right. Committee report and consideration of a resolution for second reading, adoption under suspension of rules. The administration has requested this item be considered for second reading, adoption under suspension of rules. Could I have a motion to suspend the rules?
Mr. President, I move to suspend the rules.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Rules have been suspended.
Resolution number 2018-0138, authorizing a sole source contract with Fund for Our Economic Future as fiscal agent for a collaborative of public-private funders in the amount not to exceed $1 million to support employment of county residents in up to 3 industry sectors in Cuyahoga County for the period July 24, 2018 through December 31, 2021.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mr. President, there's a substitute Mr. President, there's a substitute piece of legislation for this legislation, of which I'm going to move to have it adopted and ask there be a second. But I will not be discussing it. Khalil will be discussing the actual terms and conditions because I believe it's inappropriate for me to be voting on it because one of the sectors that's being discussed is manufacturing. I do have some involvement with manufacturing, and I serve on boards that maybe potentially could be candidates for it. So from that standpoint, I would move that the proposed substitute be replacing the original language that's on before us.
All right, Councilman, the substitute, from what I understand, the copy is on page 164.
Oh, yeah, sure, I was supposed to say
All
that.
right, Khalil, would you come forward? And I guess this has gone on a little later than you might have expected.
A little bit, that's okay.
You get
Thank you,
overtime.
Mr. President. Councilmember Schron. The rest of council, hello, Khalil Sarin, your staff. This proposed substitute just provides just a couple changes that are relatively quick and easy to explain. I won't take up too much of your time. The first is in a whereas clause. It references a document that was provided by the funders group and provides an indication that the activities that these intermediaries will be performing will be guided by a set of metrics, and those metrics are found in your packet on page 168 in Exhibit A. And the reference in that whereas clause is referencing Exhibit A. The second change is in Section 2, subsection 2, related to the IT sector. The portion initially said that a primary function of the IT sector intermediary would be to support blockchain technology. But in this case, we wanted to soften that a little bit and say that it will include blockchain technology, but not necessarily primarily, but it will include it minimally, but not be limited to blockchain technology. So the IT sector will not be focused solely on blockchain, but it will include blockchain technology as a focus. And those are the changes in this proposed substitute.
Are there questions by the council of Khalil?
I just had one to the president, to Khalil, or to Armin. Why was it our typo that we have a resolution for second reading? Because now we're voting on it under suspension of rules.
I can speak to that if you'd like.
Thank you.
Initially, when it came out of committee, the committee recommended it to council for second reading consideration, but not for consideration of adoption. But since then, thinking about the timelines for the various funders group that will also be participating in this initiative, and when their meetings are scheduled for the determination of what their funding levels are going to be, we decided to defer to those schedules and see if we could pass it on second reading.
Mr. President. At the risk of crossing over the line where I'm a proponent of a product and an idea, the idea of workforce and workforce development, I'll speak in the generic. This is an area where we as a county are going to focus on three sectors without picking the best one being manufacturing, of course, always. But no, from the standpoint that this is an idea that the private sector and public sectors are going to come together to help look to job creation and workforce development. I think this is an exciting place for us to be doing stuff, and I hope it didn't cross over IG with those comments.
Comments or questions by the committee? Council?
Substitute, right?
We'll be voting on the substitute now. Madam Clerk, it's already been a motion, right, to accept the proposed substitute?
Yes,
Correct.
Schron with the second by
So
Conwell.
that's what we're discussing, is the proposed substitute. Anybody else? Okay.
Mr. President, if I could just make one comment.
Sure.
I heard today I was in a meeting and Mr. Whitehead, who's sitting here, made a comment that this may be the biggest thing we've done in the county ever in terms of workforce. And I agree with that, and I want to thank the Workforce Funders Group for working so hard on this, also for sitting through all the prior speeches and remaining here tonight. And I especially want to thank Councilman Schron for working to come up with language, apart from the IG issue, but coming up with language that everybody is happy with. So thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. All right, all those in favor of accepting the proposed substitute, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the substitute is adopted. Any
One
further-
opposed, one abstain. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
Councilman Schron abstains.
No, not opposed. Abstaining.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the resolution on its merits as substituted, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no.
I wanted to add my name.
Please add Councilwoman Simon's name.
And one abstention again on that.
And another abstention by Councilman Schron. And no opposed, so the resolution is adopted. Consideration of an ordinance for first reading and referral to committee.
Ordinance number 2018-0010, enacting section 705.04 of the Cuyahoga County Code to establish sewer connection charges for the Cook and Columbia Phase 5 sanitary sewer project, amending County Resolution number 052209, dated June 2nd, 2005, which established the charges payable for connection to the county's sewer facilities in County Sewer District number 14.
All right, it'll be referred to Public Works. Consideration of an ordinance for third reading adoption.
Ordinance number 2018-0007, enacting section 205.10 of the Cuyahoga County Code to establish the Division of Children and Family Services Advisory Board.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt. Okay, there's a proposed substitute in your packet that adds additional language, which was discussed with the department, that includes additional responsibilities to the body and further outside representation. Therefore, I would like to make a motion to accept the proposed substitute.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The proposed substitute is adopted. All those in favor of, this is getting interesting. All those in favor of adopting the resolution on its merits as substituted, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I want to add my
Ayes have
name.
it. Councilwoman Simon wants to name her, add her name.
You can add my name to that.
Who am I adding now?
Me and
Simon?
Sonny.
Anybody else would like to have their name on the resolution?
I'm on.
Okay. Simon, Hauser, and Conwell. Got it?
Simon, Hauser, and Conwell.
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilman.
Actually, I'd like to have my name added to Resolution 138, the workforce, $1 million workforce resolution.
Mr. President, too, I'd like to add my name to that one as well, 138.
And think about it for a second there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Councilwoman Brown? You guys aren't worn out yet? All right.
Okay, for 138, I have the addition of Simon, Jones, Tuma, and Brown. Anyone else in this?
Okay.
And for ordinance 7, I have adding Simon, Hauser, and Conwell.
All right, thank you. I'm glad you were able to keep that straight. All right, well, now we come to the very important miscellaneous committee reports.
We will have our Human Resource Appointment and Equities meeting on Tuesday, the September the 18th, at our regularly scheduled time, 10 o'clock.
Community Development will have its scheduled meeting this coming Monday at 10 a.m.
Community development?
To community.
I'm sorry, Community Development, and the time is 10 a.m.
Economic Development will meet on Monday at 3 o'clock.
Oh, go ahead.
Safety, Tuesday, 1 o'clock.
Day the 19th at 3.
Public Works will meet Wednesday at 10 a.m., next Wednesday.
The Council Operations, Intergovernmental Relations, and Public Transportation, it's a mouthful for a committee, will be meeting next Tuesday, the 18th at 3 o'clock. And the Inspector General will be giving his semi-annual report.
All right. Well, we are definitely back in business. This committee is adjourned.